Hey everyone, welcome to Miller's Military Moments. I'm your host, Master Sergeant Jason Miller, and I'm going to give you an inside scoop on what it's like being a soldier in the United States Army, or at least what it has been like over the last 20 years. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that little bell so that you get notified when I do publish a new video. If you're listening on podcast, make sure you subscribe and also share with your friends and family and let them know that they can come check out this podcast or vlog on YouTube and learn about what it's like being a soldier in the United States Army. And also don't forget about my website, millersmilitarymoments.com. It's a one-stop shop for everything. You can go there, you can listen to the podcast, there's links to the YouTube channel, you can read the show notes, there's pictures added on the show notes, and there's links to all the socials and everything like that. So don't forget about that, millersmilitarymoments.com. So welcome, episode 15. And this episode is all about 3 pools in Iraq. Why am I talking about 3 pools in Iraq? I mean, in 2003, we are, early on, definitely combat operations. It's, the op tempo is high, meaning aircraft. For me, working on aircraft, keeping us extremely busy, and plus our building up our footprint where we live, sleep, all that stuff. It just takes a lot of time and energy and busy. We're busy doing a lot of stuff. So why am I talking about pools? Well, there's 3 pools I'm going to talk about. 2 of them I swam in, and one, probably the best story, is one that never got completed and I never swam in it, but I think it's the best story. So sometimes, in a combat zone, and you may have really heard from in past wars, like maybe Vietnam, World War II, definitely, when they would come off the front lines and be able to go and get some R&R, rest and recuperation, relax a little bit. So we also had some of those opportunities, and sometimes they were local. Sometimes you actually could go out of the country. I think I didn't get a chance to go on this one, but you could go to Qatar in 2003. I think people were going there for a few days of R&R. So yeah, so we had this opportunity a few times as well, and but to get a little bit of respite. And of course, in the desert, it's hot. So who doesn't want to jump in a pool? I mean, it's hot all the time, right? So in the wintertime, it's a little cool, but yeah, in the summertime, it's like absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, swimming in a pool is pretty cool. So, the first one I swam in, I didn't know this thing was a pool until after 2003, and I'm going to show you a picture of it. After 2003, when I got home in 2004, I saw these things popping up all over America, really. We call them blivets in the Army, water blivets. And I'm going to show you a picture. And so if you're on YouTube, you can see this this picture. There it is, that big water blivet. And if you're not watching on YouTube, it's okay. You can go to my Instagram and you can see these pictures. And then you can also go to the show notes on my website and you can see these pictures too. So you see, it's like in the States, they were blue with the inflated ring, almost like soft-sided tubes, sort of like with the inflated rings at the top, like to keep everything together in the water in. And so they were blivets, and that's what they look like right there. So I had no idea these things existed. I didn't know, and even before we got to Iraq, and this picture right here is right behind our tents and where we slept and stuff. So this is an actual blivet that we used for a different reason. I didn't swim in this one. I swam in another one, but I wanted to show you what this one looked like so that you kind of got the idea. And so there's that. But so the thing was, we were really busy. And I'll tell you also, we were inexperienced when it came to aviation maintenance. So we were young, meaning, a lot of our junior soldiers that do most of the maintenance and stuff, were new to the Army. We didn't have a whole lot of maintenance experience. We had a few guys that had some maintenance experience, but the type of maintenance that we did a whole lot of inspections and a lot of part replacements. And typically we would have the aircraft in our possession, a week or two, depending on, how much stuff we had to replace and how long it took, and then how many parts we had on hand. So anyway, it's a pretty big deal. The flight companies can only fly as fast as we can get those aircraft back to them. Because when we get them back to them, they have a whole lot of hours they can fly on it before, they have to give it back to us again. So it's really, really important. But, we're, again, not very experienced. And so there's kind of a lot of pressure on us to figure it out. I mean, we've got to get this experience when it's for real. So anyway, hey, we're no different than other people. We work on rewards, right? People give you a challenge, or say if you do it in this amount of time, you can get a reward, and that's kind of essentially what happened. And our platoon sergeant at the time was like, whatever the time was, I think it was 7 days or 10 days or something like that. If we could get it done by that time, he had a prize for us or a reward. We didn't even know what it was, or at least I didn't know what it was. It was just like, okay, that's cool. It's our job anyway, right? Like, we should be motivated to do this anyway. But, so nonetheless, threw that out there, and we got it done in enough time. So we only had one aircraft in at a time. And I say that because after this one, we essentially had two at a time for the next year. 2 aircraft at a time, and number 3 was always on the flight line getting ready to come in. So it was incredible. We had 2 day shift teams, one working on each aircraft, and 2 night shift teams, one working on each aircraft. So 24-hour operations on both helicopters for a year, essentially. And we were, churning those things out pretty good, which allowed, the flight companies to fly a lot of hours. And so it was a pretty big deal. But so we had everybody, all 4 of those teams, essentially able to work on this one helicopter. And then the benefit was we happened to have a lot of supply for that one helicopter. After that, it got, pretty slim pickings, and it was pretty challenging from there forward. But anyway, we got it done. We got it done, and I was working nights. And so then, it was like, hey, we get this reward or whatever. Okay, cool. So platoon sergeant's like, grab a set of PTs and, bring your gear, which means you've got to bring your weapon and your Kevlar helmet and stuff. You always have to carry that stuff with you. So we jump in the truck and we drive to the other side of the airfield, and it's the water purification guys. So that's another thing. Like, these guys are obviously important. They take water and then they run it through their systems, and make sure it's clean, and they, issue it out to us to drink. So they, make sure it's all good to go, but they have all the systems and the chemical agents needed to do all that kind of stuff. So, but they're also pretty resourceful and ingenious, which, I've talked a lot about in the last couple episodes, how soldiers just, we learn how to do things and can figure out ways to make things better, or, whatever for us at the time. So these guys, they took 2 of those blivets that I just showed you in that picture, and essentially they took 2 of them, filled them up with water, and then they connected them with tubes and a pump filtration system in between, and then had like pool chemicals, for lack of better term. It was probably the same stuff they used back home, to put in there so it was safe to swim in it. And it was circulating, back and forth. And there you go. It had 2 like little pools. I mean, you could get, I don't know, 3 or 4 people in at a time. You're not like swimming laps, obviously, but it was like, I don't know. I mean, the greatest probably 30 minutes, I had up until that point, and just getting, in some water, getting wet a little bit. And it was just a nice, refreshing break. And interestingly enough, I never went back, and I don't know if they just took them down or whatever happened, but I never went back after that night. But it definitely was a kind of exciting, thing, and a nice reward. It was like, oh man, this is so cool. Like, it just takes you out of the stress and the realization maybe of where you're at, thousands of miles away from home in a combat zone, and you're swimming in a little pool and relaxing for a minute. So that was pretty cool. Nice experience to happen. And then, I never went back, but that's okay. So, yeah, so that's pool number one. So, all right, so pool number two, and, all right, this one is Saddam Hussein's pool. So, yes, I swam in Saddam Hussein's pool. Now, what does that mean? What that means is in Tikrit, which is right where that was his hometown. Tikrit, Iraq is his hometown. Our area of operation, the 4th Infantry Division, was that whole kind of northern sector where Tikrit was. Our commanding general, General Odierno, took over Saddam's main compound in Tikrit. Now, Saddam had compounds all over the country, and he was so scared and nervous for his life all the time that all of them operated as if he was there every day. They never knew where he was or where he was going to show up, so every one of them had to, have everything ready to go. So that was kind of interesting too. But the one in Tikrit, that was his hometown. That was where he was born. That's where most of his family was from. And this thing was huge. And so the main building was huge. And then the compound itself, it had like 15 other buildings that were just 5,000 to 10,000 square feet apiece that were just gorgeous. So General Odierno, I'll tell you, I could talk a lot about him, and I probably will mention him several times throughout these podcasts, and especially, throughout 2003. Honestly, was just incredible general. Now, I mean, did I interact with him every day? No. Only saw him a couple times, but I felt his impact all the way down at my junior level. I was a junior soldier. I definitely felt his positive impact in a lot of things. And this was one of them. So he took that compound for his headquarters, and he had a big area, big building, and he had his staff and everybody's in there and all, kind of electronics and stuff like that. They're trying to run a war for 20,000 soldiers that he was commanding, to doing all kinds of things. So he had a lot to do. But he decided, I'm going to take some of these buildings and let the soldiers use them. So he turned that over to some officers and said, that's my idea concept. Turn it into it, and let's let the soldiers use this stuff. So I'm going to show you a picture here. Well, come on. So that is what he did. So so this picture right here, this is the front of one of the main buildings on that compound. And you can just see, I mean, it's ridiculously ornate. The architecture is detailed, very expensive buildings. And then, so there's the pool. There is the pool right there, and that I swam in, and many other soldiers swam in right there. I mean, and this picture is terrible. I get it. This picture is not good. But you have to remember, it was taken from a disposable camera. I didn't have a cell phone back then, or even a really good camera that I took over there with me, of course. So it was a disposable camera, and I just took that picture with my phone today to upload it so that y'all could see that. But you can see a few people in there swimming, and that's the pool right there. And it was really big and huge, and pretty nice. I mean, all the fixtures in there are just gorgeous. Unfortunately, you have seen or could see how poor his people lived in this country, yet almost all of his compounds look like this, and it's really ridiculous. So here's another picture, and of the Soldiers Inn Recreation Center, and this is what was General Odierno's idea, and he just said, hey, create this space for the soldiers. And I had a chance to go over there for a few days, and so I wanted to take my picture next to it. and I stayed in one of the sub buildings that, was like, again, like 5,000 square feet, and it was just gorgeous. But so we got to come up to where the pool was, and there's like an outdoor sand volleyball court. I think there was a snack bar or something, I think. But the other cool thing was there was the 4th ID band. So yes, like every division has a band, if you're wondering about that. And they can play all kinds of music. They don't just play Army songs and stuff like that. They play all kinds of music. So when they weren't out at other posts, other camps and places playing for those units, which they did a lot, they were busy. The band, if you didn't know, especially in a combat deployment, those people are on the move like the entire time they're there. It's their job to go and play music and build the morale of the troops and stuff like that. So they're gone all the time. But when they were there, they also had to be busy, and because they always stayed near the general, they would come out to the soldier center and they would play, for a couple hours, and they would even take requests, and you could say, hey, could y'all play this? And if they could, they would do it. And so you really got an opportunity to relax again, and that was my kind of R&R. I think I had 3 days over there, and it was, again, nice to get away, put my shorts and t-shirt on and swim a little bit, and then enjoy some time there. So that was, really a big deal for General Odierno to do that for us and turn that into a place where we could come. And of course, so soldiers from all over, our area came and utilized it whenever they could. And so it was pretty cool. So not many people can say they swam in Saddam Hussein's pool, especially in his hometown compound in Tikrit, Iraq. So, and I did get a chance to do that, and which I'm very appreciative of General Odierno allowing us to do that. But I'll tell you, he was a soldier's general, and a lot of respects, and gave us a lot of freedom to maneuver. I'll tell you that in our areas of operation. But and I'll definitely talk about him more later in a couple of other episodes. So that's 2 pools. All right, so 2 pools. And so the third pool. So what about this third pool that I already mentioned? I didn't even swim in it and didn't even get built. So everybody, at least, I had heard in history, right? Every unit always seems to have this person that can get stuff, right? That can get stuff done or get stuff, like acquire things. A lot of times it's the supply people. Maybe it's a supply sergeant that just knows how to work the system a little bit better than the other person, or maybe they know somebody and they can communicate with them and maybe get some better stuff for their soldiers. But I've always heard of those people, and you see them sometimes in the movies, and we had a guy like this. And he was experienced. He was an experienced mechanic, but he was a junior soldier, just like me. And he could just, I don't know what it was. And I think it was, he could talk to people, like he could connect to people. And he was really good at, I don't know, negotiating, but just like saying, hey, what is it that you need? And maybe work out a trade. Or sometimes he would just steal it. It just would, right? So, but this guy, like, and he wouldn't tell anybody. Like, he wouldn't even tell you most of the time, like, things were happening. And it would just, all of a sudden, there's this thing. And you're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, yes, we need that. And we're like, where did this come from? And everybody's like, I don't know. And then we're like, oh, yeah, we know. And, of course, he just denies everything. But, all right, so... And I really wanted to tell the story of the first pool because it matters with this one. So, a little background too on our living area. There were rocks, so a lot of it was just soft sand, and it's like, we call it moon dust. When you walk in and step in it, it like puffs up and just it gets in everything, and it's everywhere, right? So one of the early solutions was, I don't know, somebody had all these rocks that they brought in, and they had bucket loaders, and they would come in, and the engineers would, unload all these rocks and stuff. So they did that, and they came in and set all these rocks everywhere in between this mostly area where we walk. But behind our tents, next to the next hangar that we worked in, there was an open space, and it was right behind that truck that I showed you earlier that was that had the blivet. So it was in the space over there. So the engineers with the bucket loaders, our friend, who I will not name, made connections with those guys, and I had no idea why or how or whatever. But so he made connections with them, talked to them, and so he also borrowed the bucket loader one day to come and do some extra stuff, because they could only come and work for, I want to say it was like 2 days, and then they had to go work at another location, to help another unit or whatever. So, but somehow he got a hold of the bucket loader. Like, they said, well, I can't come over there and run it for you, but you can take it and use it, just bring it back over here. So he comes over and he's doing that, and we're like, man, why are you doing that? And how are you? Anyway, then we're like, no, okay, not even going to ask. So, there were some connections he's already made there with those people, and then using this bucket loader and stuff. And so, anyway, one day, I am, not too long after this, I'm walking behind our tent areas, and our commander is behind me. And there was something going on over there. Honestly, I really wasn't paying that much attention. Something with the ground and all this kind of stuff. And our friend was back there. And so there was, our commander was like, hey, and talking to our friend, and he was like, come over here. What is this? And he was like, it's a swimming pool, sir. And he's like, what? What do you mean a swimming pool? There was a hole in the ground that had been dug that was probably 3 or 4 feet deep, and I don't even know, 10 feet wide by 15 feet long, something like that. Because I'm looking back there like, what the? And he's like, what do you mean a swimming pool? I didn't approve a swimming pool. Like, how you can't put a swimming pool back here? And he's like, yeah, but sir, I've already talked to the water purification guys, and I have the liner that's going to be in the ground that's going to cover all of the dirt and everything, and I've got the pumps and the chemicals, and to make sure all the water is clean for the soldiers, so that it's not. He's like, how did you get that? He's like, don't they need that stuff? He's like, I don't know, I just went over there and made a deal. He's like, and how did you get this hole dug? He said, well, I made a deal with the engineers. And he goes, deal? Who makes deals? He said, I can't even get the engineers to come over and finish taking care of our area, and yet you, a junior soldier, can make a deal with the engineers to come dig a hole for a pool? Like, and I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is not good. Like, holy crap. And our commander, like, really even keeled, not over the top, for most things. And I'm like, oh shit, he's getting mad. And I could tell, like, he started getting mad because, not really because of the pool anymore, but because this junior soldier can go get things and get things done that him, as a major at the time, puts in official requests to have stuff done in our living area, and it gets denied. Yet here this junior soldier's running around, getting the engineers to do stuff, getting the water purification guys to give them equipment and stuff for a pool. Like, what, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man. And so he's like, you know what? You know what's going to happen? He's like, you're going to take all that stuff back right now. You're going to get that bucket loader, and you're going to fill in this hole, and it's going to be done before dark tonight. I'm like, oh shit. And so the bucket loader wasn't there anymore. He had to go get it. And I'm like, oh man. And I could hear our friend was like, yeah, but sir, this is for the soldiers. This is for, their morale. And I heard, I don't give blankety blank blank, and on and on and on. You're going to do this. And then he turned around and started walking and saw me standing. I was like, ooh, shit. And I took off running, ducked between a couple tents. And I was like, man, I don't even want to, mess with this. So I went over to the hangar and I said, do y'all know what so-and-so was doing back there? And they're like, yeah, he was building a pool. And I'm like, where have I been? And then I said, dude, he just got caught by the commander, and the commander is pissed. And they're like, no way. And I said, yeah, man, it's like done. Like he's got to, fill it back in. Like it's done. You can't, with no more pool. And we're like, oh man. And what's funny, our friend was telling the commander it's all about the soldiers, right? So these guys are like, you could just see their morale just went, just down the tubes. And, they were just excited about a little pool in their backyard and, a chance to jump in some water and cool off. But yeah, I mean, this guy could just get anything and anything done. And we almost had a pool behind our tents that we could have jumped in whenever we wanted to. But no, it was not meant to be. So to finish a story about this guy and getting stuff. So another thing about our living area. So when we first moved in, and in the next couple of weeks, I'll show more pictures of our tents and kind of the layout of the area. When we first got there and set up our areas, so we had to use urinal tubes. So they're literally PVC pipes that we put in the ground, and you have to dig a trench, and then urine goes in there. And then the ladies have to go obviously in the barrels, and then you have to take a poop in the barrels, and then we pull them out and you burn the shit. And and I've got pictures of that. I know that y'all probably don't want to see that, but it's really just a barrel on fire. But anyway, so yes, that did happen. And so, but we had to build that stuff, like, so out of wood, places where you could sit down and do your thing. And we built like several places that you could sit down and do that with walls. So give a little bit of privacy. And, so we also, we have a whole lot of equipment. Our unit, we have a whole lot of trucks and trailers. So we got tasked from higher headquarters a lot to make supply runs to go pick up equipment or parts and pieces that other units couldn't, or whatever the case may be. So this guy got tasked with driving. He had to go all the way back down to Kuwait, another 500 miles, and he had a flatbed trailer, and he had to pick up some stuff, but he had some space on there. And so he comes back with 4 porta potties, like ratchet strapped to the back of it. When he comes, he's like, pulls into the thing. He already dropped off the equipment he needed to. And he has these porta potties. Now, we don't have anybody to service them. These literally are empty porta potties. But what we ended up doing was we cut the back of them out, the bottom, and we slid the barrels underneath there. And then you do your business in there, and then we can still pull the barrels out and, burn it like we're supposed to. So, but it gave you some privacy. You could close the door, take care of your business. And we were like, man, where did you get these things? He's like, man, they were just sitting there, and right when we were getting ready to leave, I had a couple guys just come over and help me, and we put them up on there. And he says, all I know is that some guy was really mad and was yelling at me and chasing after us as we took off down the road. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, man, hopefully they didn't see, your bumper number, and because they can track who that is. All of our unit numbers are on the bumper numbers. And of course they know we were down there doing a mission. And so here he comes. So again, he can just get anything. Sometimes, stealing or reacquiring, other stuff. And so it was definitely a trip being with him. And so it's really, the third pool was the funniest story, with him getting this whole thing created out of nothing, but it never was to be. And then he got some porta potties. I don't even know. That was probably a few weeks after that or whatever. But, everybody has one of those guys in their unit. I mean, they really do. Later deployments, I don't remember so much that kind of stuff happening. They were just definitely all different. But that one, yeah, I mean, just the supply system was just different, and that was our guy to like get stuff that we really needed. So pretty interesting. So yeah, there you go. 3 pools. Got to cool off a couple times, enjoy Saddam Hussein's pool, and got to swim in it. So, one of maybe a few thousand people or so. I don't know how many people got to do it. But, yeah, definitely interesting. Got to swim in his pool. And then the infamous pool that never was to be, never got built at Camp Spiker. So, yeah, so that's it for today. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for coming by, listening to 3 pools in Iraq, episode 15. And, don't forget to subscribe, share it, let your friends and family know. You're going to hear all kinds of stories. The next one coming up is going to be, next weekly episode is going to be about my first phone call home. And there's some interesting things surrounding that. And I was allowed to make a phone call. I was the only one that was allowed to use this phone and make a phone call. And I'll talk about why and all that stuff. So definitely stay tuned and get ready for that one, because that's definitely an interesting story and tough in a way because of the circumstances that were surrounding why I needed to call home. So be prepared for that one. And subscribe, share with your friends, check out the website, millersmilitarymoments.com, and send some comments. Let me know what you think. And until next week, don't forget Saddam's pool was enjoyed by many, and including yours truly. I had a good time, cooling off in Saddam's pool. So until next time, peace.